Now, in another report from the underside of popular culture, let's take a look at just how strange things have been getting in the suburbs lately. Here's the story of a band you really should try to hear, Ween.
It was just purely accidental, everything, including this interview. It's all a big accident.
When Elektra Records signed Ween in 1992, I'm sure there were some questions from the shareholders. After all, this was before the days of Tones and I gracing the label. This was the 20th century. God century. In the decades prior, Elektra had released albums from artists like AC/DC, The Eagles, MC5, The Doors, Carly Simon, The Cure, The Stooges, Queen. And now, Ween.
Dean's got to tune his guitar again. No, you have fun with that.
So how did this partnership come about? And more importantly, what would happen when the world at large was exposed to the power of brown?
It's Ween! Ah, we're Ween! Oh, we're Ween.
What's a Ween?
We're band, you know.
Out of nowhere, out of the total musical vacuum, out of total darkness, comes one ray of light. And it's fucking Ween.
By the time their debut released in November of 1990, Ween's next album had already been recorded. In fact, 3 songs from God Ween Satan had been recorded at the studio Ween called The Pod, those being Birthday Boy, Blackjack, and Puffy Cloud. According to Ween, The Pod was an apartment, though I'm not quite sure that term fits here. Andrew Weiss, Ween's long-suffering producer, dubbed it a shack, and I'd have to agree with that appraisal. Situated in the middle of a horse farm in Silbury Township, the pod was a haven for flies. Ween lived in the pod for a year and 10 months with their cat Mandy, who would later have a song dedicated to her. The band, working out of their new abode, recorded nearly 70 songs on a 4-track cassette recorder, much in the same way they had during their Bird of Prey days. The resulting demo tapes were entitled Big Timmy Wasserman, Bilboa, and the Pork Roll, Egg and Cheese on a Kaiser Bun. After sifting through the songs on these tapes, Dean, Gene, and Andrew Weiss took a vote on which tracks would appear on their next release, and eventually, an album took shape. Some notable outtakes from these demos include Good on the Bun, which would later be released on their Shinola Volume 1 compilation, and Albino Sunburn Girl, a live fan favorite. Word soon got around about Ween's prolific body of work, and in 1991, the band was courted by Mark Kramer. Kramer, after making a name for himself in the experimental New York music scene with Bongwater and Shockabilly, had founded indie record label Shimmy-Disc, which had repped artists like Galaxy 500, Daniel Johnston, King Missile, and Guava. Kramer offered Ween $2,500, about $6,200 today, plus a trip with him to Jamaica. That was an offer Gene and Dean could not refuse. During the trip, Jeaner, Diener, and Kramer shot music videos for 3 songs from the upcoming album, Captain Fantasy, Pollo Asado, and Pork Roll, Egg and Cheese. They also, of course, indulged in the local herbiculture. On September 20th, 1991, The Pod was unleashed into the world. At a staggering 77 minutes over 23 tracks, The Pod was an impressive feat, considering the band had released an album with 26 tracks less than a year prior. Since no official contracts had been signed with Shimmy-Disc, Ween weren't technically in violation of their multi-record deal with Twin Tone. Not that it would matter anyway, in a year's time.
The 2 guys have such a stage presence, even though they don't have 50 instruments, they got 2 instruments, a drum machine.
They're like the crazy boys next door. They're like your crazy cousins.
Tell me where you come from, was it?
The Pod marked a huge change in sonic direction for the band. After moving into the Pod, the band switched from live drums to utilizing the Alesis HR-16 drum machine, for fear of noise complaints from their neighbors on the farm. This shifted the tracks found on the Pod into a less bombastic, sludgier, and more insular sound. And when you go back and listen to those Gobween Satan songs recorded at the pod, you can hear their sound change right off the bat. In addition to being quieter and lower fidelity, the songs became notably druggier in nature. And although Gene later recanted the excerpt on the CD liner notes, which claims Ween inhaled 5 cans of Scotchgard during the recording of the album, some substances were definitely at play. The album's cover art is lifted directly from the Best of Leonard Cohen compilation, only with Chris Williams' face pasted over Leonard's. Chris, or Mean Ween as denoted on the liner notes, was an old buddy of Ween's, present at the talent show performance from 1986. Williams also plays bass on Alone, the 19th track of the album. Strapped to Mean Ween's face on the cover is the Jammy Pack, a Scotchgard-powered bong, which perfectly exemplifies the imagery conjured by the pod's content. It's also the subject of the album's opening track. I couldn't dream of a better opener for the pod than Strap On That Jammy Pack. The track feels like a drunk bar band warming up at 3 a.m. as a sweaty crooner steps up to take the mic. It also acts as a litmus test for the listener. If you can't get down with Jammy Pack, the pod likely isn't for you. At least not right now. Next up is Dr. Rock, a flange-heavy punk anthem, and a song that would go on to be a staple of the band's live shows. Dr. Rock is the first time the pod really showcases Ween's knack for melody, if you can decipher it under all the Verisbed fuzz. Despite the album's lo-fi quality, the songwriting on display is actually quite good, and more earnest than one would assume. Like with Birthday Boy, it seems Ween were hesitant to broadcast their less irony-laden songs without a heavy layer of production distracting from the lyrics. The next track, Frank, introduces the pork roll, egg, and cheese motif found throughout the album.
Give me a pork roll, egg, and cheese.
The pork roll is a New Jersey staple, formulated in the 1800s by Trenton native John Taylor, and we no doubt saw pork roll as a point of local pride. Sorry Charlie and She F***s Me are sweet Diener ballads, the latter of which once again gives an extended shout out to pork roll. The pod is also notable for introducing the Stallion pentalogy of songs, with the Stallion parts 1 and 2 sprinkled throughout the track list. The Stallion was almost certainly inspired by the horses Ween would see galloping around the pod, and it seemed to be a theme that stuck with the band, as 3 more entries in the Stallion series would see releases down the line. The Stallion Part 2 sees a twist enter the narrative, when it's seemingly revealed that Diener himself is the titular Stallion. Pollo Asado is a sublime spoken word track that documents the exchange between a server at a Mexican restaurant and a very confused customer. The lyrics were inspired by Gene's real experiences working at Taco Loco in New Hope. Right to the Ways and the Rules of the World is a Bowie-infused fantasy epic. Captain Fantasy is a psych rock anthem concerning its titular mythical character. This style of fable about a legendary creature is a theme that would continue through the band's discography. Oh My Dear Falling in Love is a sweet twee-pop number which shows a rare sonic restraint from the band, and is another testament to Ween's burgeoning skill as songwriters. And of course, Pork Roll, Egg, and Cheese, which might be the most well-known track on the pod, and it's easy to see why. A gorgeous, earworm hook serves as a final send-off to the pork roll motif, and further showcases the pod's more melodic side. There are many more songs on the track list not mentioned here, but I'll leave those for you to discover as you listen, re-listen, and listen again. As an aside, in 2003, Ween recorded All Requests Live, an in-studio live album consisting of songs voted for by superfans online. And of the 16 tracks performed, 6 of the songs were from the pod, making it the album with the most individual requests by far. One possibility for why the pod is the favorite of so many fans is its re-listenability. Your first time experiencing the album, you might not get it. It's loud, atonal, crass, and totally insular, full of indecipherable inside jokes and odd structures. But as you revisit the album over and over again, you tap into the pod's wavelength more and more, until you and the pod are one. One day you'll wake up and realize you no longer need to strap on that jammy pack, because you never took it off. On release, the pod was praised by Spin Magazine, Kerrang!, The Stranger, and Trouser Press, and it's been cited by legendary electronic artist Aphex Twin as one of his favorite albums. However, once again, it definitely didn't break any sales records. In September, Ween embarked on a tour supporting the album, with Mark Kramer filling in on bass. The pod tour would see Ween play 44 gigs over 4 legs, and had them on the road until late June 1992. During the tour, Ween drove across the country to play in 16 states, and it also marked their return to Europe, with shows in the Netherlands, Belgium, and the UK. Over the tour, tensions brewed between Ween and Kramer, since he was technically their boss, and after the tour, the band broke ties with Shimmy-Disc, though Diener would later state that there was no bad blood between the two.
No, Kramer's alright, man. Kramer's all right.
But were Twin Toners mad that you were stolen?
Kramer.
You were stolen by Kramer?
No, Twin Tone went out of business, so we had to do something.
Oh, okay.
And
wow, I'm
we
sorry.
We had to put out another record, and this guy promised us a trip to Jamaica.
Well, I'm glad that you broke.
So what would you do, man? Go to Jamaica, right?
In October 1991, Ween had been evicted from the pod, though Dave Ayers reportedly said he was going to help Ween out. Before long, Ween had moved into a farmhouse with another Shimmy-Disc alumni band called False Front. Dean and False Front vocalist Guy Heller were already familiar with each other from junior high, and made an instant connection. The two began making music together in sessions that would eventually culminate in the formation of the hard rock band Moist Boys. But put a pin in that for now.
Okay, we're back, and our homemade media festival continues with a band called Ween that actually records on a portable 4-track system. This is Mickey Melchiondo and Aaron Freeman, both halves of Ween. They actually prefer to go by Dean and Gene Ween, and who am I to argue? Anyway, why do you guys...
In 1992, Ween's contract with Twin Tone was bought up by major label Elektra Records at the behest of A&R rep Steve Ralbovsky. Elektra gave the band a ludicrous amount of creative freedom. Ween was paid $200,000 to produce a third studio album, and when the band delivered a lo-fi album consisting primarily of songs already written and recorded, there was no pushback from the label. To quote Ralbovsky, the lo-fi thing was almost a mark of distinction. It gave Ween another measure of uniqueness, and it wasn't so lo-fi that it was an unpleasant listening experience. It harkened to what they did live, and I didn't give it much of a second thought. If there was any second thought, it was, sonically, this is cool that it's 4-track and lo-fi. It was basically, give them the resources to make the records the way they wanted to make them, support their agenda within the label, and try to come up with creative plans with my colleagues to support the releases. And just basically, get out of the way. Steve Ralbovsky, the man you are.
Now, you guys were on Twin Tone, then you Shimmy-Disced, then you Atlantic'd.
No,
man, we Elektra. Oh, Elektra. Oh, sorry.
The new album was once again produced by Andrew Weiss, and after all was said and done, Weiss stated that it only cost the band $100, with Dave Ayers going as low as $42. On November 10th, 1992, less than 2 years after Ween's debut, Pure Guava was released on Elektra Records. Pure Guava sees a slight shift in sound from the pod, though the two are definitely spiritually connected. For an analogy, I would liken the pod to Deliriance, whereas Pure Guava is more psychedelic in nature. Guava saw the same lineup of Gene, Dean, and Andrew recording onto 4-track tape, with a rotating roster of guest performers chipping in here and there. Mean Ween contributes vocals on album opener Little Birdie, Guy Heller from Moist Boys sings lead on Flies on My Dick, and friends of the band Larry Curtin and Scott Lowe also pitch in backup vocals throughout the album. This collaborative atmosphere is illustrated further in the album's liner notes, where a fold-out photo of Ween with a crowd of New Hope locals can be found. Some notable attendees include Gene with first wife Sarah, Dean posing next to Spinster Records owner Warren Green, and Claude Coleman Jr., the drummer from Skunk, who had started to jam with Ween around this time.
On your new record, on Pure Guava, when you opened it up, there's a picture of, looks like a homestead somewhere, and you've got about 40 people. It's very kind of Allman Brothers band circa 1970.
Yeah.
All these kind of hippie-type people, and one black guy with a scythe.
Yeah.
What is all this? Who are these people?
They're just all our friends. We just got them all up there one day for a shoot.
It's a perfect snapshot of the all-American atmosphere that acted as a primordial soup for the band. Ween is no longer just Gene and Dean. Ween is Legion. Also in the liner notes is a message to fans reading, "When Ween comes to your town, bring us hot meals. No more junk food. Thanks." This harkens back to an earlier debacle. In the liner notes of Godwin Satan, the band had asked show attendees to bring food, but were unimpressed with the menu served up to them. True art requires premium fuel.
It's just a joke. People would think it's just really lousy food. Whereas we were hoping to get like glazed roast ducks and things like that. But, the big bowls of rice pudding, but no one has come through.
Pure Guava begins with an unreal suite of songs. The first track, Little Birdie, is a psyched out ballad about, what else? Bird watching. Next is Tender Situation, a heartfelt all-time fan favorite that, in my opinion, really comes alive on stage. The Stallion Part 3 is another entry in the Stallion series, and perhaps the greatest yet. The Stallion transcends to take on a mythical quality, now closer to prog rock epics than the sludgy noise rock from Parts 1 and 2. Big Jim is a vibrant pop number dedicated to Big Jim Lemons, a wise old man who worked at a car lot owned by Diener's dad. And Push the Little Daisies. Released as a single with a music video 7 months later, Push the Little Daisies was a runaway hit of pure Guava. Daisies is a sunny Verisped pop number about a troubled relationship. One so troubled, it seems, that Diener wishes death on his lover. Push the Little Daisies was a minor radio hit, but really took off with the release of the music video, which was featured on Beavis and Butthead in June of 1993.
Hey Beavis, this guy sounds like you.
Shut up, fart knocker.
In the music video, Gene's cursing was censored by an excerpt from Prince's Alphabet Street, which I think you'll agree is much preferable to the standard 1000 Hz bleep. After the success of Daisies, Ween were invited to appear on several TV shows and high-profile events, including MTV's 1993 Spring Break in 120 Minutes. Ween had never seen success of this caliber, and as such had a hard time adjusting to the new lifestyle. They had never had to censor themselves before, and they had certainly never had to hang out with Vince Neil. Pure Guava continues with a trilogy of down-tempo, hip-hop inspired tracks. The Going Gets Tough from the Get-Go, Reggae Junkie Jew, and I Play It Off Legit, which see Gene and Dean exchange bars over drum and bass loops. Reggae Junkie Jew in particular would prove to be a fan favorite. The song is a diss track of the local musician Brian Lansky, who allegedly stole Diener's girlfriend and was a general nuisance to all. Some critics took offense to the lyrics of Reggae Junkie Jew, not knowing, and possibly not caring, that Diener is Jewish. Once again, Ween had never had to curtail to the easily offended before, and they weren't planning on starting now. Pumpin' for the Man chronicles Diener's former work at a gas station where he would pass out early Ween cassettes, and the trials and tribulations of the working class. Sarah is a sweet spacey dream pop number. Spring Theme is a sultry R&B cut about lust. I Saw Diener Crying in His Sleep is a lullaby of sorts from Dean to Gene, and Morning Glory is a massive industrial noise track about pumpkins. It's a real shame that this gem has never been played live in full. Loving You Through It All is a country western ballad where Gene and Dean seem to be making up the lyrics as they go. Hey Fat Boy is a roided out assault on an overweight fellow who allegedly killed Gene's mother. A citation needed on that one. Then there's Don't Get Too Close to My Fantasy, a legendary Bowie-esque number that ends with a blissful chorus of stereo a cappella. Finally, the album closes out with Poop Ship Destroyer, a sci-fi narrative which rides on the sonic coattails of tracks like I Play It Off Legit. Poop Ship is another live staple, and has occasionally been played for up to half an hour live, despite only being 2 minutes long on the record. Once again, there are more album tracks to experience, which I highly recommend you dive into. Pure Guava is a record best experienced as a whole. It's like Abbey Road or Pet Sounds, if Abbey Road and Pet Sounds had a song called Touch My Tutor on their track list.
Here's a song we haven't done in a while. Common Bitch by Ween.
This is about the common bitch.
Common bitch!
Considering how cheap Pure Guava was to produce, the album was a huge financial success. It not only widened Ween's influence, but also deepened the cult-like devotion of longtime followers. On October 29, 1992, Ween set out on tour once again, and this one was a beast. Stretching over 7 legs with 75 shows, the Pure Guava tour lasted until May 1994. It also saw the band going the furthest from home yet, with leg 5 containing 11 dates in Australia. Oh, and they also had 2 gigs in Canada. The shows of the Pure Guava era not only saw Andrew Weiss joining as the band's live bassist, but by leg 4, Ween officially had a drummer.
Drums?
And it was none other than Claude Coleman.
Yeah, Coleman.
Ween. That's about it for this edition of The Week in Rock. We'll be back next week with an up-close look at gays in the military, the Black Crowes, the king and queen of the glamour scene, RuPaul, and Mick Jagger performing live. We'll see you then.
Throughout the tour, fans began to notice new songs being added to the set list. Songs with titles like Freedom of 76, Take Me Away, What Diener Was Talking About, and Voodoo Lady. These songs were a little different from the usual Ween fare. The instrumentation was tight, and the lyrics were markedly less irony-laden. The band stripped back the noise and let the songwriting speak for itself. This was baffling, to say the least. Though Steve Ralbovsky had told Ween they could continue making lo-fi brown music on Elektra, it seemed like they had a hunger for something more. Something sweet instead of sour. Something savory, even. As 1994 rolled around and the band hunkered down to finish their 4th studio album, it seemed that Gene and Dean were craving chocolate. And cheese.
And they really hit me in the heart. They think we suck. I think they think their fans are stupid for liking them, because I think they're a joke.
This is really gonna suck.
Our fans are the biggest losers in the whole world.